What if I told you that the advice, just work harder, is actually the fastest way to ruin your life, your health, and your bank account? Meet Ramu and Somu, two rival tailors living on the exact same street in India. Ramu works 18 hours a day, bleeding over his needles, refusing to sleep. Somu starts late, takes naps, and hangs out with his family. Yet, when the richest merchant in the land drops a massive, life-changing contract on their doorsteps, the outcome completely shocked the village. Most people think success is a race of endurance. But by the end of this story, you're going to see a brilliant, hidden strategy that will completely flip the way you look at your job, your business, and your daily hustle. Watch closely until the very end, because the secret twist in Chapter 6 isn't just about tailoring. It is the exact blueprint you need to stop burning yourself out like a candle and start multiplying your results like the sun. Let's dive into story. Chapter 1. Two Paths on a Narrow Street. Once upon a time, in a bustling village in India, there lived two tailors named Ramu and Somu. They were next-door neighbors, running their shops on the same narrow, winding street. Every morning, the rising sun would paint long, golden stripes across the dusty road, signaling the start of a new day. But for these two men, the day began in completely different ways. Ramu was a deeply hardworking man. He firmly believed that the only key to success was endless, grueling labor. Every single morning, long before the roosters even thought to crow, Ramu was already awake. By the dim, flickering light of his oil lamp, he would sit cross-legged and begin stitching. His fingers moved like lightning, darting across the cloth. He worked without a single pause. He barely stopped to eat his simple meals of rice and dal. When his wife brought him a hot cup of tea, he wouldn't even set his needle down. He would sip it hastily while his hands continued to sew. The more hours I work, the more successful I will become, Ramu would whisper to himself, his eyes fixed on the fabric. Somu, on the other hand, had a completely different philosophy. He was just as dedicated to his craft, but he believed in working with a clear mind. Somu would arrive at his shop a little later than Ramu. He didn't rush. Instead, he spent his first hour planning. He would neatly organize his colorful threads, sharpen his heavy metal scissors, and map out the most efficient way to complete his orders for the day. The villagers constantly noticed the contrast. "Look at Ramu," they would whisper in admiration. "He works from sunrise to midnight. What incredible dedication. What hard work." In the evenings, they would shake their heads in disapproval when they saw Somu closing his shop early to go home to his family, while Ramu's oil lamp still burned brightly into the dark night. Chapter 2. The Pile of Clothes and the Smart Strategy. Months passed, and the village grew busier. Both tailors received plenty of orders. Ramu, driven by his fear of missing out, accepted every single order that came his way. He never said no to anyone. As a result, the pile of unfinished clothes in his shop grew taller and taller, like a mountain threatening to collapse. He stitched frantically day in and day out. His eyes became permanently red from exhaustion. His fingers were sore, bruised, and sometimes bleeding from constant needle pricks. Yet, he never complained. "Hard work is the only key to success," he muttered to himself, forcing his tired body to push through the pain. Meanwhile, Somu received just as many orders, but he handled them with strategy. Before cutting a single piece of cloth, he would examine it carefully to find the best way to minimize waste. He also took some of his earnings and invested them back into his business, purchasing a modern sewing machine that could stitch faster and more neatly. Recognizing that he couldn't do everything alone, he hired a young village boy named Krishna as an apprentice. Somu trained Krishna to handle simple tasks like sewing straight lines and attaching buttons, leaving Somu free to focus on the complex, highly skilled tailoring. Chapter 3. The Merchant's Grand Challenge. One sunny afternoon, a wealthy merchant named Lala Herodis rode into the village. He was a powerful man with a grand problem. He needed 300 identical shirts for his estate workers, and he needed them completed within exactly 1 month. This was a massive order. Whoever took it stood to make a fortune. Lala Herodis visited the two neighboring shops. Ramu didn't hesitate for a single second. Yes, sir. I will take the order. Ramu promised enthusiastically, his mind already racing with images of the gold coins he would earn. I will work day and night, sir. You can count on me. The merchant then walked over to Soma's shop. Somu listened quietly, stroked his chin, and thought carefully. Sir, give me just one day to plan, Somu requested calmly. I will come to your mansion tomorrow morning with my answer. Lala Herodis was highly impressed by Ramu's instant enthusiasm, so he officially handed the order to him. Ramu went to work immediately. He cut cloth and stitched with furious speed, working 18 hours a day. His hands moved mechanically, like a clock. His worried wife begged him to rest, but he rudely brushed her off. This is my big chance, he snapped. I cannot waste a single moment sleeping. Meanwhile, Soma went home, took out a piece of paper, and calculated the numbers. The next morning, he knocked on the merchant's door. Sir, I can also complete this order for you, Soma announced. In fact, I can deliver my half in 25 days instead of 30. The merchant looked at him in surprise. How is that possible? Ramu is already working himself to absolute exhaustion, and you think you can finish even faster? Soma smiled gently. Sir, I have a plan. I will use a special cutting method that allows me to cut 10 layers of cloth at the exact same time, rather than one by one. I have also designed a simple pattern that my apprentice can easily follow. I will work smart, not just hard. Impressed by his quiet confidence, the merchant made a decision. Very well. I will split the order. I will give 150 shirts to Ramu and 150 shirts to you, Somo. Whoever finishes first with the best quality will win all my future business. Chapter 4. The Race of Endurance. The great tailoring race began. Ramu pushed his exhausting routine to the absolute limit. He barely slept, and he barely ate. But as the days bled into weeks, his body began to rebel. His tired eyes struggled to focus in the dim lamplight, causing his stitches to become crooked and uneven. Because of his blurry vision, he made critical mistakes and had to rip out his threads to redo several shirts. This cost him precious hours. His health began to rapidly decline, and his hands trembled violently from pure overwork. Across the street, Somu and Krishna worked steadily, calmly, and intelligently. Soma spent the first 2 days doing nothing but creating a flawless master pattern and training Krishna. He rearranged his entire workspace so that every pair of scissors, needle, and thread was within arm's reach. Crucially, Soma took regular breaks. He stepped outside to rest his eyes, stretch his tight fingers, and breathe the fresh air. He knew that a rested mind made fewer mistakes. He also managed his time beautifully. While Krishna handled the basic stitching of the sleeves, Somu used that time to cut the next batch of fabric. When the blazing afternoon sun made the shop too hot to work comfortably, they didn't force it. They took a short nap, using the cooler evening hours to sort buttons and prepare materials for the next day. Chapter 5. The Mirror of Success. As the final week approached, the stark difference became obvious to the entire village. Ramu was falling dangerously behind schedule, despite working nearly 20 hours a day. His exhausted brain made him slow, clumsy, and completely inefficient. Errors piled up, and he spent valuable time fixing mistakes that a well-rested tailor would never have made in the first place. On the 25th day, Somu and Krishna walked up to the merchant's house. They carried neat, beautifully wrapped bundles. Every single shirt was identical, perfectly stitched, and flawlessly sized. Lala Herodis was amazed by the spectacular quality. When the final deadline arrived, the merchant went to collect the other half from Ramu. The sight was tragic. Ramu was on the verge of physical collapse. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands were bandaged, and he had only managed to finish 200 shirts out of his total workload, and many of those were plagued with flaws and crooked seams. The merchant, being a fair man, paid both tailors for the work they had completed. But his ultimate decision was crystal clear. From this day forward, All of my business will go to Somu, the merchant declared. He has proven to me that intelligence, preparation, and planning matter far more than blind hard work alone. Chapter 6. A Beautiful Partnership. Ramu was completely heartbroken. He sat on the floor of his empty shop, tears streaming down his face, staring at his blistered hands. But I worked so much harder than him. Ramu cried out in despair when Somu came to visit him. I sacrificed my sleep. I sacrificed my health. I sacrificed precious time with my family. How is this fair? Somu walked over to his lifelong neighbor and friend. He placed a gentle, comforting hand on Ramu's trembling shoulder. My dear friend, Somu said softly, you have the fierce heart of a lion and the incredible dedication of a saint. But you have been burning yourself like a candle, wasting away to create a tiny light, without realizing that you could be the sun instead. Ramu looked up, wiping his eyes. What do you mean? Hard work is important, very important, Somu explained. But when we add smart thinking to hard work, we become truly unstoppable. Think of it this way. A farmer who works furiously all day with a dull blade will cut far less grain than a farmer who pauses to sharpen his tools. Our hands can only work a limited number of hours a day, but our minds can find brilliant ways to multiply our efforts. A deep silence fell over the shop as the truth of Somu's words finally settled into Ramu's heart. Understanding dawned on him like the morning sun. Will you teach me your ways, my friend? Ramu asked humbly, his voice barely a whisper. Somu smiled warmly, holding out his hand to lift his friend up. We will learn from each other. You will teach me your unstoppable dedication, and I will share my methods and systems with you. Together, we will become the greatest tailors in all of India. From that historic day forward, the two tailors joined forces. They combined Ramu's legendary, tireless work ethic with Somu's brilliant, strategic planning. Their new partnership became famous throughout the entire region. People traveled from distant towns just to have clothes made by the two masters. They lived long, happy, and highly prosperous lives, always remembering the golden rule. True success does not come from working hard alone, nor does it come from being clever alone. It comes from the beautiful, perfect combination of both. Final thoughts. And that is how two rivals became the most legendary partnership in all of India. The truth is, look around you today. The world is full of Ramus, people working themselves to absolute collapse, wondering why they aren't getting ahead. And the world is full of Somus, who know that a dull blade cuts no grain, no matter how hard you swing it. The real magic happens when you combine both. If this story hit home for you, drop a comment below. Are you currently a Ramu or a Somu? And what is one tool or plan you need to sharpen today to start working smarter? Don't forget to smash that like button if you found value in this tale. Subscribe to the channel for more immersive stories that change the way you think, and share this video with a friend who is working way too hard and needs a wake-up call. Until next time, keep hustling, but remember to sharpen your blade. See you in the next story.